This video is sponsored by my patrons at Patreon. Click the info card to find out more. So here we are with Lesson 3 of Unit 6. This is part of the Year 1 Comprehensive Beginner Piano Lesson series where we've been learning to play piano from the very beginning while learning to read music at the same time. Today's lesson is a part of a 3-lesson sequence that's going to lead us up to playing From the New World. And today we're going to learn about the concept of a dotted quarter note. So if you are finding this video on YouTube, just click the info card in the corner to come to pianovideolessons.com where you'll see how all of these lessons fit together. So the dotted quarter note is a type of rhythm that helps us to hold the note longer than one beat. So as you may remember, when we have a dot after a note, the dot adds time. So we're familiar already with the dotted half note. And in the case of the dotted half note, the half note was worth 2. And the dot that followed it was worth 1. So we had a total of 3 beats. Now I did explain that the dot is always worth half of whatever note it follows. So in this case, we're talking about a dotted quarter note. So we know the quarter note counts for 1 beat in 4/4 time. So we so far have 1 beat. And then we have this dot that's going to cause the note to hold longer, and it's going to hold for half a beat, 0.5. So the entire total of the value for this note is 1.5 beats. So we have to get used to the idea of holding a note for a longer amount than a specific beat. This can seem a little bit confusing because we're always used to holding, I'm just going to write a quick rhythm here, we're always used to holding a note and changing to the next one on the beat. So we might have something like this, which goes 1, 2, 3, 4. But when we're looking at a note that has an extra part that leads us into the second beat, we'll need something to finish the second beat. And the best thing to put with that is another half beat, so another 8th note that hangs out all by itself. So then we would clap this like 1, 2. So you notice this note came into the second half of the beat. So we had 1, 2, and then this note followed. So a good way to count when you see music that contains the dotted quarter note is to include the half beat count divisions. So you would then be saying 1 and 2 and. So here is the second beat beginning. Normally we would have another note here, but now this dot is going to make us wait longer on the note we're already playing, and then the and is the time when we can play our next note. And this is only half of beat 2, the and portion, so it's nice to use a half beat note, like the 8th note. So you're seeing here that the 2 and is occupied now by the dot, which is connected to this previous note, and the and then can be played by whatever note happens to follow. So you can see now that I will clap this 1 and 2 and. Anytime you see a dotted note, always just imagine the dot moving over. That's what I do. I see the ta and I think, oh, the dot's going that way. It's taking the space of the next. Even though it's written directly with the note, to me, it kind of visually drags my note into this next beat. So let's have a look at the music. And on the sheet here, there's the explanation that I've just given you, but you can see at the bottom there's also a rest with a dot after it, and that is a quarter rest, and it works exactly the same as the quarter note. So here we have some basic tapping drills, and we're going to get more crystal clear on what this rhythm really means. So here we see 2 half notes. This is nice and simple. The first half note takes 2 beats. We're going to have 1, 2, and then the next half note takes the next 2 beats, 3, 4. Simple. So now let's look at this next measure. Okay, here we have the dotted quarter and then an 8th note, and then the measure finishes just as the first one did with 3, 4 on a half note. So here we're going to have 1, 2. Now you're going to imagine that this little dot here is the first part of beat 2, and then you're going to have your 8th note coming in on and. So I recommend having the subdivisions counting with and for every single beat you count. This ensures that you don't change the amount of time that each beat takes. So let's just clap these two measures. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And you can see these next two measures are identical to this one. So you could write the counting in, but I actually recommend just getting used to counting without the numbers written. So let's do the entire line. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Great. So looking at the next line, we're going to see a nice simple measure that has 4 quarter notes. And then we have the same rhythm that we were just practicing, interspersed with measures that have 4 quarter notes. So I'm pretty sure we can do this, and we're going to try and do it without writing in the counting. Starting here. Ready? Go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So you notice that I counted with ands in between every note, every beat number. And I did that because I could see that there was a measure that used eighth notes, so that enabled me to count the whole way through. Now, I do need you to pause the video, and I need you to practice doing this yourself. If you don't actually practice doing it, you're not getting the lesson. You're just watching me do it. I can already do it. You need to practice doing it as well. If you look at the next line, nothing new is introduced here. It's just a flip of this lesson. No, it's actually just similar to this one. It's these rhythms here interspersed with half notes. And again, this one is very similar to this one, only we've got an extra combo here. Let's actually try this one together. So we're down to line 4 now. So this one's going to count 1 and 2 for the dotted quarter with and on the eighth note. Then we're going to start our next beat 3, and this is going to be a full beat plus half of the next. So 3 and 4, and then there's the final half of our fourth beat. So this particular measure counts 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So let's do the whole line. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And now looking at the next line, we can see a half note for both of the beats, both of the notes in the first measure. And then in this next measure, we have a half note followed by our dotted quarter eighth rhythm. And that's a little bit different than what we were doing here, because we're having a really long note at the beginning of the measure, and then an almost as long note next, followed by a short note. So we're going to have this long half note, a fairly long dotted quarter note, followed by a very short little eighth note. So this particular measure is going to go 1 and 2 and, that's the first 2 beats. Then we have 3 and 4 for the dotted quarter, and then and for this last eighth note. So you can see that this one has 2 full beats, this one has a beat and a half, and this one just has half a beat. So they're getting progressively shorter. So let's try this measure here. Ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And now let's try the entire line, and we're going to start off counting with our subdivided beats. Ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Nice. So again, you need to pause the video and you need to practice these rhythms. You can get this sheet at pianovideolessons.com. It's part of the ebook for Unit 6. which is going to teach you 6 classical pieces of music, along with lots of practical piano theory and skills that will transfer to learning other pieces of music. All right, next measure. We're getting a whole bunch of combinations now. We've got our basic 4 beats. We've got the dotted quarter eighth followed by half rest, half note. Then we've got this one here that's a little more complicated. And then we've got the opposite of this one. So this is our most complicated line yet. So I'm just going to write in here 1 and 2 and for this dotted quarter eighth. And then this one, we're going to have 1 and 2 with and for the eighth note, and then 3 and 4 and then here, this starts on beat 3, doesn't it? Because at the beginning of the measure, I have 1, 2. So here I'll have 3 and 4 and. So let's go ahead and clap this line. Ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So the last line of music on this page has a different time signature. It's in 3/4 time. And I just wanted to show you that of course you can play the dotted quarter eighth pattern in 3/4 time. We'll just count it as always, 1 and 2 with the and on the eighth note. And then our next beat starts on 3. 1, 2, 3. And then we have a bar line that tells us to start again. So we have our 3 beats in a measure and a bar line. And here we'll have beat number 1. Then we start on beat number 2, but this is now a dotted quarter. So we're going to have 2 and 3, and then our eighth note and then we have a 3-beat note to hold the end. So let's try this one together. 1, 2, 3, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. So that one feels a lot different than the 4/4 time because we have to count only to 3 and start over again. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I hope you're keeping track of your progress on your progress sheet. Feel free to drop me a note at pianovideolessons@gmail.com. And if you loved this lesson, maybe you'd like to become a sponsor. Click the info card to find out about Patreon sponsorship. So it's important to practice these rhythms because coming up in our technical and improvisational lesson, which is going to be lesson 4, we're going to be using this rhythm on the pentascale, and it's also coming up in the piece that we're learning in lesson 5 from the New World. All right, so I'll see you in lesson 4. Go practice your rhythms.